A lot of people think that cheap-looking footage comes from a cheap camera, but honestly, I think that it's not the case. Take a look at this, for example. These shots are shot on the same camera and the same lens, but the difference is very obvious. And this one is shot on a regular smartphone. So in this video I will show you 5 mistakes that can make your footage look cheap and how to fix them. And just to be clear, by cheap I don't mean low budget. You can achieve great footage with the very basic gear. I mean the footage that looks more random than intentional. Sometimes the motion is off, sometimes the light is not there, and sometimes the great footage is destroyed in color grading. The first and the biggest mistake that can completely change your shots from looking very cheap to very cinematic is light. But I'm not going to talk about the technical aspects, the filters, the shutter speed. No, I mean just the light that is around you. Whether you shoot in a studio, then of course setting up the lamps, or nature, and then the time of the day, the weather, the clouds or harsh sun. Every aspect changes the film dramatically. I shoot mostly outdoors, so I really care about the light that is outside. Even if you have the best camera, when it's midday and the sun is really bright and there are no clouds, the footage might look very flat and just not cinematic, not as good as you might think. Take a look at my footage from Iceland. I shot it at Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, and it's a great camera known for a very cinematic image. But those shots look like they were shot on a smartphone. And a few days later I made these shots with the same setup, but the difference is the light. Sometimes a casual walk to the shop can be the most cinematic moment that you will experience. And I like to think about the golden hour of the day as a cheap cheat code that can completely change your footage. And of course you will fix a lot in color grading, but unfortunately I learned that the greatest shots look great even in the camera preview, and it's something that you can't just add later. And now let's talk about something that you can control much more precisely, and that is motion in your shots. And the problems here usually come from 2 different things. First, wrong shutter speed, and second, bad camera movement. Let's go quickly through the first one, because I think that it's easier to fix. So if your footage feels a bit off, the motion feels choppy or crispy, or maybe there is too much motion blur, you might want to check your shutter speed. I already have a deep dive video about shutter speed, so I won't get into details here. If you want, you can check it out. And then we have the camera movement. The main problem here is that the movement might feel a bit rushed and a bit random. An example would be a very nervous handheld shot. But what if I tell you that the problem might be a very fast pan? Yeah, even on a tripod. When the pan is too fast, you might blur all your footage and not even notice that it's not that usable when you see it on a big screen. I had this problem in Iceland. I shoot a lot of shots and then noticed that, oh my god, I was just moving the camera too fast and it wasn't what I wanted. Then I learned that the slow movements are often better. And the next thing is using zoom all the time. And trust me, composing your footage from 3 different scenes in 3 different focal lengths looks much better than zooming through all your scene. And the next mistake is something that is really personal for me, because it completely changed the way I film. Before filming, I loved to take photos, and if I saw something beautiful, I just had to take a few photos of it. But unfortunately, then I applied this to my filmmaking and I tried to treat it like photography. The problem here is that you will end up with very beautiful scenes, but they might feel random. You notice that it looks more like a slideshow of different beautiful scenes. And it's great in photos, but not in videos. You want to create a story for your viewer, and you want to make your viewer feel the moment that you felt in this situation. So thinking in sequences and making small stories of every scene that you want to take is a great approach, especially when, for example, I'm filming nature. If I see a beautiful tree or maybe a beautiful landscape, I want to focus on taking at least 3 different scenes, different frames of this particular object. So for example, I will do the wide shot, then I will do a closer shot, maybe I will focus on the detail. Ask yourself if you have enough footage to make it into a separate film itself, separate scene that feels completely unique. We have 2 more mistakes to go, but if you liked this video so far, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me to create more films like this. But let's go back to the 4th mistake, and it's letting bright light ruin your shots and take you away from the look and settings that you wanted to use. A lot of people shoot outside, and when it gets too bright, and it's usually too bright for even the darker lenses, they start compensating it in the wrong way. They start closing the aperture too much or change the shutter speed, but while it fixes the exposure, it completely ruins the effect that you wanted to achieve. And this is the moment when ND filters matter. And I had a big problem with it in the beginning. That's why I shot everything at f16 to f22, because I shot in bright daylight and it was the only way to fix the exposure. And I will tell you this, I thought that it looks great, because before I only used my smartphone. But when I bought an ND filter, I realized how much shots were completely ruined by not using an ND filter and shooting at this completely too high aperture. ND filters will allow you to keep every aspect of your video in control and not just shoot randomly with different depths of field and different blurs in the background. If you want to know more about them and learn how to choose the right filter for you, make sure to check out my video. But for now, let's go to mistake number 5. The problem is trying too hard to make footage look cinematic. And the funny thing is that a lot of people make this mistake while trying to make the footage look better. And here the list of possible mistakes just goes on. Too much contrast, saturation, sharpening, too much clarity, and just too much everything. And here, in my opinion, if you want to achieve a film look, it's much better to do too little than too much. The main problem will be contrast and sharpness. I have a separate video about sharpness, but the main clue is to not over sharpen your footage, because then it will just lose this softness, and the softness makes the film look real and look premium. If you display a video from your smartphone on a big screen, you will notice that the sharpness is the main thing that gives it away. So be really careful while sharpening your video. And the second part that's very important is the contrast. And my problem here was that I tried to stretch the highlights and shadows in the footage until it covered the whole dynamic range in DaVinci on the scopes. Remember that while some footage has dark shadows and strong highlights, it makes sense to stretch the contrast very much. But if the scene is dark, if you stretch it too much, it will just make no sense. Sometimes the biggest change comes from a small adjustment, and it's a great thing to remember in filmmaking. So if your footage looks cheap or just not how you expected it, make sure to think about those mistakes, because a lot of them are completely unnoticed and you are doing them unintentionally. I really want to make filmmaking easier for beginners, people who have a very hard time, so leave a comment and let me know if those films help you. This motivates me very much. And if you want to learn more about filmmaking, check out this video next. Thanks for watching, and remember, let your films be shot by reality.